You're not going to immediately go to Steven Spielberg and ask him for a job. Realistically, if you met Steven Spielberg tomorrow, there's nothing he can do for you. He'll be like, oh, that's great. So glad you want to be a filmmaker. Okay. Everybody tells you that if you want to make it in the film industry, the first thing you have to do is network. But then they don't often tell you how to network or who to network with. So you go out there, you try to network with some of the biggest producers you can find, all the biggest people you can find, and you're not getting anywhere. You are getting frustrated and you feel like there must be something wrong with you. In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to actually network successfully. This is Pocket Change Films, the podcast where we talk about making no budget projects, then building a portfolio, then launching a career, and hopefully making your first micro budget feature. My name is Katya Alexander. I've been a producer in the industry for 10 years. I sold a film to a Bamarama and IFC. I've had movies on Hulu. I worked on the Las Vegas Sphere. I have had a really wonderful career, and I want to use my experiences to help people break into the film industry.
Pocket change, pocket fame, film with a spark. Will I have to scream when we hit play in the dark? Innovation, creation on a shoestring beat. Join the journey, feel the heat and everything.
Before I start, I wanted to mention that I have a newsletter where I talk about job openings and all the film industry news. The link to it is in the description. Make sure that you subscribe and you follow along. So when I first started, I thought that networking was just like asking people to introduce you to people and then try to get to like the biggest possible person you can get to and then be like, make my career for me. I couldn't have been more wrong, and it just was not very helpful to pursue that in any way, shape, and form. What I learned was the most important networking I ever did in my entire life was with my own peers, the people that were building careers while I was building careers, and the people that had the same goals as me and were at the same level as me. The first ever very important network that I built was in college. I went to film school, I went to Emerson, and one of the great things about the Emerson culture is that there are groups of people that make films all the time, and I was in that group of people. I was on a film set for either a BA or a BFA project or people's just independent short films that they wanted to make while at school. I was on set every single weekend, and I often slept in the post room because I was still coloring and sound designing and doing every single thing that I can to like make the project as best as I could. I didn't know this then because I was just doing it for the love of it and the passion for it, and like I didn't want to waste my time at college. But now I know that that was the most important thing I had ever done in my entire career. There are people that I worked with in college that I still work with today, including two of my closest creative partners that I've worked on most of my biggest projects with. I tell people a lot that almost all of the jobs I've ever received, not all, but almost all, have come from my network at Emerson. Someone will be looking for a producer, and someone in my network will be like, oh, I have an amazing producer for you. And then they'll throw my name out there, and then I'll go interview and hopefully get the job. One thing I should emphasize is your peer relationships probably won't pay off immediately or overnight. This is something that's going to build your long-term success. And honestly, your long-term success is significantly more important than that one thing you can get right now. The most important thing is that you're networking horizontally. You're networking with people that are on your level, that are your peers, that can actually help you in the moment. And you might network a little bit diagonally, like someone that's maybe 1 or 2 stages ahead of you, but you're not going to network like this. You're not going to immediately go to Steven Spielberg and ask him for a job. Realistically, if you met Steven Spielberg tomorrow, there's nothing he can do for you. He'll be like, oh, that's great. So glad you want to be a filmmaker. Okay. But if you meet someone that's your own peer and they know of an entry-level job that's opening up, they can tell you about it, they can give you a really good reference, and you might actually get that job. That's going to pay off way better than that one meeting you had with Steven Spielberg. When you network with people at your own level, you actually tend to rise together. I always say that the rising tide lifts all boats. So as your friend is moving up in their career, the fact that they're moving up will automatically start pushing you up. And then as you're moving up in your career, you're going to automatically push them up, and you both will just start rising together. The other really important thing about that relationship is that it's genuine. These are people that you like. You enjoy spending time with them. They're your friends. They're your peers. In general, I do tell people to not waste time networking with people that they don't like, even if the person is way above them, because what you're building is a collaboration. You're building a network of people that you're going to brainstorm with, you're going to write with, you're going to create with, and to be able to be very vulnerable with someone and to share your art with someone, there has to be a level of trust there. So it's just important that you kind of build that trust with people and you're building friendships. So always make sure that when you're networking, you're being your genuine, true self, and you're not just at it to get something from someone. You really are trying to meet people and build amazing artistic collaborations with people. I met my network at film school, but there's obviously tons of places you can meet your network. I mention it in past episodes when I talk about building a crew for your first project. You're gonna meet that network probably at a film club, or you can build your own film club. You can go to school. You can take some classes. You can also go to networking events and just meet people at those events. I will admit, some of my really close friends that I still talk to today, I actually just met at a networking event, especially when I was entering the tech world and I didn't know anybody in the tech world. Going to networking events and meeting people there has built my tech network into being this massive web of people. And to reiterate, these are all people that I really, really like. I love spending time with them. I love talking to them, and I love working with them. So let's think about networking a little bit like a triangle. The people that are horizontal to you will be the base of your network and will be the most people that you know. So then the next part of your network will be those diagonal networks. So then the next part of your network will be that diagonal networking that you're doing. Those are people that might be 2 to 3 places above you. They're super great because they offer chances at promotion. Also, sometimes when someone is only a couple spaces above you, they're in charge of hiring lower positions. An example, whenever I produce a project, I allow the coordinator to choose who the PAs are on the project. Coordinators are sometimes PAs on larger sets, and they tend to be really tapped into the PA network. So whenever I hire a coordinator, they're hiring all the PAs. So if you are just starting out and you know a coordinator, they'll be able to hire you on that set. It also shows why if you're a PA and you meet me, there might not be something I can do for you because I don't even hire my own PAs. And I promise you, Steven Spielberg is definitely not hiring his own PAs. And then the last bit of the network would be the more horizontal people. It is good to know a couple of people that are way above you. There's so many things they can offer you. They can offer you mentorship, they can offer you advice, they can offer you guidance whenever a question comes up. And sometimes, a little bit more rarely, they will know of an entry-level job that's opening up and they'll be able to give you an amazing reference because there's someone higher up. And if you're applying for a job, you can put them as a reference on your application and that person will probably have amazing things to say about you. So let's say you're going to a bunch of networking events and you've met a bunch of people. You've met people at your own level that you're making projects with, you're starting to create some creative equilibrium with, then you're meeting some people that are a little bit above you. It's kind of harder to stay in touch with those people because they might not be on your sets all the time. And then you have some people that are way above you that are offering you advice, but it's even harder to stay in touch with that person because why would that person be talking to you every single day? So the next part of networking I'm going to talk about is how to stay in touch with people. I know for myself, so many people reach out to me on a regular basis that I can't keep track of all the people that consider me in their network. Granted, when someone reaches out again after a couple years, I do still know of that person. I'm like, oh yeah, it's so great to hear from you. But in the context of hearing job openings or building a really long-lasting relationship with that person, you're going to need to contact them more than every couple of years. How do you actually stay in touch with those people? One of the things you can do is create a Google alert for their name. Anytime their name is brought up in an article, it will go right into your inbox. The reason that's super cool is imagine someone in your network just sold a project or just something big has happened in that person's life. It's the perfect excuse to reach out to that person and go, hey, I just saw that your TV show got picked up. That is incredible. I am so excited for you. And you don't have to ask for anything. You don't have to ask for a place or a job or anything because it's important to reach out to people when you don't need something. If the only time you're reaching out to people is when you need something, that person's going to kind of start dreading hearing from you. One of the other things that I've done in my network, now I always feel so weird about giving this advice because to me, it's something so genuine. I didn't start doing this because I had some ulterior motive. Honestly, I don't network in general at all because I have an ulterior motive. I joined the film industry because I love people, I love talking to people, and I love being collaborative. So networking to me was just very natural because in my head, I'm just going out and like looking for all my new best friends. And then we might work together. And if we don't work together, who cares? I have all my new best friends. And if we do work together, even better, because I'm now working with my new best friends. So this next bit of advice, and honestly, all the advice I'm giving, it has to be genuine and from the heart. It can't just be some calculated ploy in your great plan of like taking over the film industry. That advice is whenever I'm going about my life, anytime I use a piece of advice that someone gave me, I email them. Even if it's advice that they gave me 10 years ago, I'll be like, hi, I was just thinking of you today because 10 years ago you gave me this piece of advice. And then today this happened and I ended up using that advice. And I wanted you to know that you have had an impact on me, that I am still thinking about you 10 years later. Thank you so much. Or whenever I've made a really big accomplishment, like I've gotten a new job, or I just sold something, or I did something really big, I go back and I email every single person in my life that I felt like led me to that moment, which sometimes is like upwards of 50 people, and half of those people I haven't even spoken to in 2 years. Because I can email all these people going, hey, I just accomplished this thing. I'm so proud of myself. But I'm emailing you specifically because here is the way you had a specific impact on my life and this accomplishment I had. And it has to be specific. It can't just be, and you helped me. You don't have to be like this very specific piece of advice, but sometimes I'm like, all those times that you went out to lunch with me and you would listen to all the roadblocks I was running into, and you would give me this really meaningful advice. It allowed me to not give up, and now I just reached my dream. And you had such a big part of that, and I want you to know that. I had a mentor email me saying that he actually frames the emails that I sent him because they're so meaningful to him. And I never intended for that. I mean, I did intend for them to be meaningful. I never intended to receive anything from him. I just wanted him to know everything he gave me, which was so much. And then the last reason to reach out is literally just reaching out. Just, hey, we haven't talked in a couple months. I've been thinking about you. One time somebody asked me, how do I reach out without being annoying? And I was so taken aback by that question because I have never been annoyed by somebody reaching out to me. It has always made my day, especially if it's someone that I've met with a couple times or I've gotten coffee with a couple times. If their email is just, hey, thinking about you, I'm like, that's awesome. I'm thinking about you too. One of the reasons you do want to contact people is you want to be fresh in their minds. And then hopefully, maybe if there is an opportunity that comes up and you're fresh in their minds, they'll think of you for that opportunity. But again, you're not doing this just for that. You're doing this because you're trying to have meaningful relationships and connections with people in this industry. So what are actionable first steps if you are just starting networking? First of all, start with the people you already know. When I was on set, I obviously met more people, and I stayed in touch with them all through college. I reached out to them regularly. I would tell them all the things I was up to in college, and people were very receptive to it. People were really proud of me. So when I built this big career and this like little network on the East Coast and I moved to the West Coast, I didn't know anybody. So when I was starting again from scratch, building a new network, I started with the people I knew. I reached out to all the people I knew and I said, hey, I'm moving to Los Angeles. These are my goals upon moving there. If there's anybody that you think I should meet, I would love to be connected to them. For like the first 2 years I lived in LA, I don't think I had breakfast or lunch alone. I was constantly meeting with people and networking with people. I also made some amazing mentors who really brought me forward in my career. Mentorship has been the biggest lead to my success. Above everything else that I have ever done, ever, and every choice that I have ever made, finding mentors was it. And I'll talk about how to ask someone to be your mentor. You're starting with people you know first, and they can give a warm intro to the people they're introducing you to. And it definitely helps way more than just like a cold email. And someone's like, hey, can you meet my friend blank? It's so much easier for me to be like, okay, I understand where they fall into this map. that is a part of my career, my life, I'm much happier, much more excited to talk to this person. If you're nervous about losing track of people, you can make a simple spreadsheet with everybody's names and the last time you saw them in person, the last time you emailed them. So that way, if someone is being neglected and you haven't talked to them in a really long time, it'll be on the spreadsheet. You'll see, oh my God, I haven't reached out to this person in like 6 months. If your network is literally zero, literally you know nobody, that's when you join a film club, or that's when you go to film festivals to meet people, or you go to networking events. Because once you meet one person, you have access to that person's entire network. That's the other thing with networking horizontally. All of your friends are also networking. So your network becomes tenfold and 100-fold and 1,000-fold, because as they're meeting people, that's people you have access to now too. Okay, so talking about mentorship. It's not something you should ask for right off the bat. You shouldn't like in a cold email be like, I'm looking for mentorship. Be my mentor, please. It's almost like dating a little bit. You know, you're going to go on a couple of meetings, you're going to get to know each other, and then you'll be like, hey, would you be willing to be my mentor? It's important to sort of map out what that might look like. So you can say, I really need a mentor. Would you be willing to meet with me once a month and, you know, give me advice and I just tell you what I'm up to? Or sometimes people can't commit to something like that. So you say, would you be my mentor? Just whenever I have a question or I need a piece of advice, would I be willing to email you? Almost everybody says yes to that. And sometimes when I've asked people to be my mentor, they've responded with, I would happily be your mentor, but this is sort of what I can handle right now, which is you can email me a couple of questions and I'll answer them as best as I can. But having people that are way above you that you're meeting with regularly helps you grow so much, because they can help you avoid mistakes that they made in their career and they can give you guidance. And it's just like there's this feeling of momentum when you're talking to somebody who has already done it. Okay, so what mistakes should you avoid? I already mentioned it, but don't just reach out when you need something. Feels very transactional and it doesn't feel great to be the person receiving that. Don't ever assume you're not worthy of somebody's time. No matter who that person is, you are worthy of their time because you are a person and you're being ambitious and you are reaching out. That person might be way too busy. I know there's been times where I've been so busy, I just can't meet with anybody, but I usually communicate that. I'll be like, listen, I just signed on to a bunch of projects. My plate is completely full. But if you want to email me any thoughts, I'd be happy to respond. And then when things slow down, I'd be happy to grab a coffee with you. But there is nobody that is not worth my time. And then lastly, never ghost somebody after a great mentoring session or a great collaboration. I have done that by accident early in my career where I kind of would just ghost people because I would think, well, I have nothing really to say to this person. I don't want to waste their time. And then a mentor of mine reached out to me and said, hey, you know, you don't really reach out a lot, and it makes me feel a little bit used by you. And I was like, whoa. And that's when it completely changed my entire perception of networking. So if you've just collaborated with someone and you had a great collaboration, or you just had a great meeting with somebody, or you think someone can be an amazing mentor to you, do not ghost them. Use all those tips that I mentioned to make sure that you're staying in consistent contact with that person. Consistent contact is going to look different from each person. Like there's some people I talk to once or twice a year, and there's some people I talk to at least once a month. It depends on like where you're at and what you're doing, but make sure that no matter what, you are still staying in contact with them. Just remember, networking is about creating relationships, lasting relationships, not some weird transactional thing where you're just like trying to get something out of each other. And just a reminder, your future collaborators and your future network are probably people you already know. So make sure that you put a lot into those relationships, because those are going to be the relationships that help you the most. You should take a moment today to think about all the people that have impacted your life and your career, even if it's an English teacher that you worked with in kindergarten, and reach out to that person, tell them the impact that they had on your life, and reopen that path of communication. Make sure that you like and subscribe to see more videos. You can see even more videos that I post on TikTok and Instagram, some behind the scenes, some quicker tips, and I have a weekly newsletter where I talk about job openings and all the film industry news. So make sure that you subscribe to that as well. The link for that will be in the description of this video. I'm Katya Alexander, and this is Pocket Change Films.